Hey everybody, Callum here, and I've been waiting to share this with you for quite some time, and I am very excited to show you my latest illustration and introduce you to the world of Bahumia. So this is my latest illustration, a full map of Bahumia, the setting of the popular American Dungeons and Dragons podcast called Not Another D&D Podcast, also known as NADPod. The show recently concluded its first 100 episode campaign set in this fun fantasy realm, and this is a special limited edition canvas print map that I was commissioned to create. The entire map is actually about a dozen individually hand-drawn elements, the biggest being the main Bahumian landmass, as well as the frozen northern neighbouring continent known as the Frigid North, as well as smaller elements such as airships, clouds, Congo Bongo Islands, and then about 8 exploded views of some of the most notable towns, cities and locations found throughout the show and the world of Bahumia. The fantasy world that Brian Murphy, or Murph, the dungeon master and host of NADPod, has created in Bahumia is so rich and fun, and the story and characters and setting that the whole cast has created over the course of their first campaign set in this world made it an absolute delight to draw and illustrate. The other cast members, Emily Axford, Jake Hurwitz and Caldwell may be players in the world, but their improvisation and imagination over the course of the show in creating lore and details in the world meant that I had the chance to fill almost every inch of the map with Easter eggs and details from the Bahumian campaign. The original map is drawn onto A3 200 GSM cartridge stock paper, which is thicker, more durable paper stock that is smooth and clean but still has a bit of texture and grain to it. The main continent is about 200mm north to south and about 300mm east to west, meaning that on the poster it is actually bigger than the original. So however small some of the details may look in the poster, they were actually smaller to draw, and I'm glad they've scaled up so well. Most of the detailed illustrations that I do require around 0.03mm pens, and I tend to use Unipin fineliners nowadays. I know that many of you will possibly suggest I try Copic or Le Pen or Stadler or Micron, and rest assured I have used any and every fineline pen under the sun over the years. However, many of those brands rarely go as small as 0.03. Remember, this is 0.3 and not 0.3. These are truly tiny little pens, and as a result I find that the nibs will wear out long before the ink actually dries up, meaning that you usually have only a few meters of drawing before the characteristics of the pen and the line weight start to change and degrade and become unreliable. Talking of scaling up, each major location from the story, Galaderon, Moonstone, Gladeholm, Esri, Frostwind, the Crick, Hillholm and Irondeep all have an accompanying postcard, a small portrait illustration that shows a bit more of an exploded, detailed view of the town or location. In total, 8 were drawn, and I had planned to do 12, however, avoiding cluttering the final map, we settled on using just 3. Looking at my original drawing as well, many people are surprised to know that I don't set down pencil lines or really plan out my drawings first. I basically draw ink straight to the paper, and then in this case of the drawing I was improvising a vast amount of the locations and geographical features as I came to them. The reason I don't use pencil is that oftentimes when you draw on a very small scale, Drawing on top of pencil lines means that when it comes to rubbing out said pencil lines, you will start to lose definition in the ink that sits on top of it, especially for the 0.03 pens that I typically use. In some of my photos you will see some pencil lines, but generally I'll only really do these very lightly as practice, and then I'll rub them out and sort of try to remember what I drew and use those as a mental guide when drawing them in with pen. I would say that some of my favourite elements to the drawing are the smaller details. I had a lot of fun doing these airships. I drew a few variations of the Stormborn, which is the vessel that belongs to the character of Hard One, played by Jake Hurwitz, and a central point to many of the campaign's most memorable moments. I also love drawing the Crick, which is this mad, wonderfully anarchistic elven society deep in the living woods that was dreamed up by Emily Axford. It's full of hilarious, bizarre lore, and the central Meemaw tree is this great giant tree that is the main centre point of their society. I actually drew a few variations of this to get it right, and in the end I wanted to reference one of my favourite cartoons, Adventure Time, and I was pretty pleased with the results. There's also the compass, which at the suggestion of Caldwell includes 4 tiny pawpaws, which are the possum companion of the party, and also the cracked amulet of Theala, which is another important item in the story. Probably my favourite piece though is here, just under Gladron. I was able to fit in my home island of Rasse onto the map, so now I can definitively say that Rasse is in the land of Bahumia. I could really go on all day about the small features and fun aspects to the map, and by the time I was finished I had probably drawn about twice as much as was actually scanned in and used for the final version. So to actually create the map, each element was scanned in at 1200 dpi and assembled in Photoshop. Because I don't use much pencil, like I mentioned, the scans usually come in relatively clean, and once I brought them into Photoshop I could really just start assembling the different drawings together. In many ways the drawing is the easy bit. Once in Photoshop the never-ending task of tweaking and fixing begins. Peeling away the layers, you can see the numerous changes that the map went through. The entire centre of the map and the living wood was actually expanded. A whole newly drawn element was dropped in there, and I actually had to go through each pen line to make sure that it all joined up correctly. We also needed to add in a few new coastlines, especially in the south near the continent of the ruined city of Asmodia, and we also added in an entirely new frigid north that is more consistent with the style and the dimensions of the main Bahumian continent. This is where you also have to be quite careful. It's quite easy to get carried away with the countless tweaks and the real pixel peeping of it all. I start looking through all of these and I start seeing every little tiny imperfection. But at the end of the day, one of the charms and advantages in many ways of pen and ink drawing is that it comes with these natural imperfections in it, and it gives it a lot more of an authentic look. So after countless hours of photoshopping, scanning, drawing, replacing elements, it was finally complete. The vast, epic world of Bahumia committed to paper. It has been by far one of my most favourite projects, and to be able to contribute something to a podcast that I have listened to for so many countless hours has been really, really rewarding. I'd like to thank the NADPod crew for giving me the opportunity to create this piece. They actually reached out to me after seeing some fan art and sketches that I had just been creating for fun, so that is very much appreciated. My friend Mary was also invaluable with her help in Photoshop, as well as making me lots of coffee during the very late nights to get it all completed in time. And finally, of course, none of this would have been complete or very easy to complete had it not been for the extensive fan-run Wikipedia for NADPod, which is just a wealth of information on all things Bahumia. The NADPod Discord is also fantastic, where I pestered them with countless bizarre requests on obscure Bahumian lore. Anyway, just a little video I wanted to share now that the project is finally completed. This canvas map version is now sold out. It's sold out in minutes, it seems, which is honestly mind-blowing to me. But if you are interested in getting a copy of this map yourself, then I believe they are going to be doing a more regular poster print run of this in the future on the Not Another D&D Podcast merch store, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to go look at this map and draw some pictures of Pawpaw. Goodbye.